Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is a rebroadcast of a YouTube video. It was a video I recorded and never released as an audio only episode. So this is brand new to just the audio only listeners. Anyway, this is something that I recorded, I think, about 9 years ago in honor of my daughter's 21st birthday. And because it is now a milestone birthday for her, I decided to pluck this video out and put it into the podcast feed. I will apologize ahead of time that the audio quality is not great because I was using not so great equipment at that time to record videos. So I apologize for that in advance. And I do make references to things that are visual. So anyway, if you want to, you prefer to watch the video version, I'll include a link to that in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Today I wanted to talk about a few specific comics, and the reason I'm going to do this is because my daughter just turned 21 a few weeks back, and it got me thinking, besides how old I'm feeling, I was wondering, well, what were the comics that I got when I was 21, and specifically what were the comics that came out in March, the year that I had turned 21. And so that was in March 1990, and so I'm going to talk about, Daredevil 280, Legion of Superheroes number 7, Hawk and Dove number 12, New Titans number 66, Star Trek number 8, Animal Man 23, and Legion 90, number 15. So let's get to that. So here's Daredevil 280. And this features a story that was by Ann Nocenti, and with art by John Romita Jr. on pencils and Al Williamson inks. And so this is where Daredevil meets the devil, quote-unquote, of the Marvel Universe, Mephisto, and which was an interesting story. I remember liking it. This along with I can't remember, Typhoid Mary. I remember this story and the Typhoid Mary story being kind of longish. I might be getting the two stories confused in my head, but it was an interesting time in Daredevil comics. I remember enjoying the Ann Nocenti run on this title, and interestingly enough, considering how I feel about John Romita Jr.'s pencils now in comics, I actually liked his work on this, and I remember liking his work on this. So when I got to reading, the Avengers that he did several years ago, I got those first 6 issues that he did with Brian Michael Bendis, and he's now on Captain America. I can't stand his art now. I just don't like it at all. But here, and maybe the difference is, one, it could be just his style has evolved. But two, and I don't know who inks him now on Captain America, but maybe Al Williamson contributed to a large part of making this artwork palatable to me. Let's see. There's not much going on here in the story. There's a lot of supporting characters, a lot of asides, if you will, that don't feature Daredevil in this particular issue. But it does, I'm sure it all works out in the end. All the subplots come together. I hope maybe one of these days I should go back and read it and find out. I think that's about it I'll have to say about that issue of Daredevil. But this next issue, this is awesome. Legion of Superheroes number 7. This is the 5-year later run by Keith Giffen, Tom and Mary Beerbaum, and Al Gordon doing this. This is probably one of my favorite runs of comics of all time. I mean, I love the Legion of Superheroes. I always have. But this particular run, just, I don't know. Maybe just me being that age, after having read comics for so long. I've been reading comics since I was in the 4th grade. So what is that? That's 8, 10. I don't know what it is. So a good 10, 15 years at most, maybe. Reading this at that age, and having grown up with Legion, so to speak, and then having these characters in the 5-year later run be adults essentially. I mean, they in the later years, but even before the 5-year later run, the Legion kind of had matured enough. You know, they were I would consider them in their at least in their early 20s, if not older, depending on the character. But here they're definitely, you know, the earlier stuff is when they were teenagers, and this is when they're in their young adult phase, and just works it really well. But this particular issue, this is 2 issues in to the storyline where the Time Trapper had been defeated and Mordru had been allowed to come to power. And so this happened in issue 5. Mon-El beat the crap out of the Time Trapper and erased the Time Trapper's influence on the universe and that time stream. And so now we get into the set. Like I said, this is the 2nd issue of the new world, the new status quo, where Mordru is basically in charge. And they're also trying to, I believe this is the issue where they introduce L.E.G.I.O.N. So this was the Giffen and Beerbaum's attempt at coming up with a Superboy and Supergirl substitute, which is where you get L.E.G.I.O.N. Coming into Supergirl, and but everything else is fairly well intact. You have a run-in with Cosmic Boy and Mordru, which was really good, leaving Mordru impressed as hell with Rock Kryn, which is always great because Rock has always been one of my favorite Legionnaires. So I enjoyed the spotlight on that character. It's just really, really good. And I highly recommend, if you're a Legion fan, if you're a Keith Giffen fan, you should pick this stuff up. It's such good comics. Going to an issue that probably isn't such good comics, but it was enjoyable anyway. Hawk and Dove number 12, featuring the New Titans. This is a second part of 2 parts where the Hawk and Dove team up with the New Titans. Turns out in issue 11's letter column, there was a comment made by the I don't know who wrote it, if it was the editor or the writers. Anyway, they talked about how, because of such high demand from the fans of Hawk and Dove to team up with the Titans, that's what we got. And so this is the second part of the story. This is just, there's not a whole lot really going on here. They're investigating these cyborg robot things. That's pretty much it. It's one big. They go after the bad guys. They fight the bad guys. You know, the formula. There is some nice interaction with, especially Dove with the New Titans. But Dove shows up with the Titans, and she's all. So she's got sunglasses on, and she's wearing a coat and a hood of some type, because she's not Dove there. She's Dawn Granger, and she's, you know, trying to keep her identity separate. You know, she doesn't want to just reveal it to these Titans just because, which I thought was a nice touch, if you will. But then she comes to know the Titans a little bit, and decides, you know, these are really cool people, and they were, and then in the end, reveals her identity. You know, trust them enough to let them know. But what got me about this, as I flipped through it before this review or this look at, was how in the end, you know, they all work together to defeat the bad guy, but then, you know, some offhand comment, Hank Hawk just goes off on everybody, and, you know, I'm the best and you guys suck, and you know, so I guess it's a way to keep Hawk and Dove away from the Titans, not to become part of the Titans, I guess. But it just seems, you know, and Hank has that personality, always has, but it always seems to just come up when the plot demands it, so that people kind of alienate or push him away. So he is alienated from the rest of the team. And you know, the Titans, of course, are all willing to just do that because they can't stand the guy. And, you know, they did, and Donna Troy does ask Dawn Granger, you know, why do you stick with him? And she says, because we have so much in common, because we're exact opposites. That's just, the answer is both. And I always did enjoy that relationship between Hank and Dawn, because she did understand him, and no one else seemed to. And it was a nice relationship that I wish had gone on further, because this is a series you get down the road about a year-ish, and they just cancel it because at the last minute during that whole gosh, what was the name of that thing? 2001. Armageddon 2000? I don't remember what it was. But anyway, they made Hank Hall the bad guy, turned him into Monarch when he wasn't supposed to be. That was supposed to be Captain Atom, but word got out, and so last minute decision, let's just, Hank, he's a good choice for this. And then they ended the Hawk and Dove series, which really ticked me off. But that's a future issue, not this one. Going from Hawk and Dove featuring the Titans, well, we get the New Titans, number 66. And this is, as you can see, Raven's kissing some dude on here. This was an interesting issue in that the guy here is named Eric, and that's my name. And there aren't too many. So this was the first time that I read in literature that I would read, or even saw in movies or TV, really, a character named Eric, and I thought that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it turns out that this is a bad guy. He's not such a great love interest for Raven. He's after her life essence or whatever, and that began a long run of years where whenever a character named Eric would come into a story, and this is not the only Eric that I read in comics, but he turned out to be a bad guy. And it really makes me mad because I'm not bad. I hate the name Eric being besmirched like that. So let's see, anything else in here that was interesting? There you get a little bit of story with Jericho and his relationship with Raven, and they seem to have a nice brotherly, sisterly relationship with each other. And most of the comic is just about the Titans going, "Hey, Raven, this guy, he doesn't quite feel right. You should be careful of him." And she just goes off the deep end, which happens a lot in comics. Now that I mentioned Hank Hall on that previous issue, it just seems to be a really easy way to get the characters to have conflict with each other, I guess. I think of it as a crutch, but it's a common thing. Next up, for you Trekkies out there, let's see. So this is the Star Trek series that DC came out with after Star Trek V. This is by Peter David, James Fry as the penciler, and stars inker. I really enjoyed this run for the most part, especially the first year or so of it. They had this one character who she's kind of like the, what did they call her? I'm trying to remember now from back in 1990. Protocol officer, I think, is what she was. So she was always dogging Kirk and reminding him of everything that he shouldn't be doing and what he should be doing. And turns out in the end she kind of falls in love with him. It's Kirk, right? So she ends up basically leaving the comic after so long. But anyway, because of the stuff that happened in Star Trek V, Kirk is a wanted man, and so the guy you see on the cover blasting the phaser out of Kirk's hand, which that's nice that he doesn't vaporize Kirk's hand, right? But anyway, that's comics. He's a bounty hunter named Mr. Sweeney, and he comes across as British, and he's very proper and not very doesn't fit the bounty hunter stereotype. He plays chess with Spock, and then when he loses, he vaporizes the whole chess set and then says, "Have another go at it?" And they do this several times. So you see a later panel in here where there are burn marks, like 4 or 5 burn marks on the table. Anyway, Kirk and company end up getting away from Sweeney. But it's a nice little. Mostly, what I liked about this is Peter David's humor that he throws in there, which kind of fits with Star Trek V. If you remember that film, William Shatner directed that. This is the one where they introduced Sybok, which was not Gene Roddenberry's. It was not blessed by Gene Roddenberry. Let's put it that way. And Star Trek V is considered by most fans of the franchise to not be one of the better films, and I happen to agree with that. But I also recognize, what they were trying to do with it. So I don't think it's that bad. But then again, I'm a Trekkie. So there you go. That's Star Trek. number 8. And then Animal Man 23. Oh my gosh. Like the Legion series that I just talked about, this Animal Man run by Grant Morrison. Let's see, this is by Grant Morrison. I just realized I did not say who did the Titans. That's Wolfman, Perez, Grummett, and Vey did that. So there you go. Sorry about that. But this Animal Man issue is by, of course, Morrison. Gosh, there we go. There's the page that has the credits. Chaz Trug. I wish I knew how to pronounce these. Doug Hazelwood are the artists. This is, what a great run. I love Morrison. I don't think I've read anything by Morrison that I haven't liked to some degree. I mean, some stories are better than others. This is definitely one of them. This whole thing, this is where Animal Man he's kind of unstuck. It reminds me of, gosh, what was that? I can't remember the story now. Never mind. Just forget that. I was going to refer to a great story by one of our literary giants, but it's not coming to me. Okay, anyway, so he's kind of, Animal Man's unstuck in time, and he meets up with the Phantom Stranger, and let's see, Immortal Man and Jason Blood, and they just have this conversation. This is, oh gosh, I don't know what time frame this is, but it's 60s? I think it's 60s, somewhere in the 60s. I thought I knew what it was, now that I don't. But what's really cool about this is, so they have this discussion, he's having this existential thing going on, but the other story that's going on here is that the Psycho Pirate is having an existential moment himself, because, the Psycho Pirate at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, he still knew of the multiverse, if I remember correctly. And if he didn't, if I'm not remembering this correctly, Morrison made him remember it in the pages of Animal Man. And so we get a little bit more of that, where he can see these characters that have been written out of continuity, and that's what this is. This is a meta story. This is a story about stories. This is a story about superhero comics in the sense of there are characters that the writers and the fans play with, and then they get tossed out, right? Kind of like what happened with the New 52 in DC with like Donna Troy and Wally West and others, Stephanie Brown. They're here one day, they're great, and then they've lived out their usefulness and they're gone. And so you see the members of the crime syndicate, Ultraman, Power Ring, Johnny Quick, and a bunch of other characters too that show up throughout this title. And you get Binky, which is some of the characters on the front cover here. Just stuff from other eras of DC Comics, which I thought was a really nice touch. And it's not just those. Throughout all this, people in the background you can recognize. I'm not going to go through those, and characters that Morrison just made up just for this, and we get that a little bit at the end, because we get this is great, Overman. So there's this alternate world. I'm pretty sure this is new in this comic. It's not something that we've seen before. I could be wrong. Knowing Morrison, there's probably some one-off panel in some comic in 1972 or something that had these characters. But so Overman is on this parallel Earth where he's the Superman that goes crazy and kills off all of his contemporaries. And he ends up, he's got a doomsday bomb. He's going to destroy his world, and because of Psycho Pirate's abilities, or the lack of control of his abilities, he brings that crazy ass superhero into quote unquote our world, and then Animal Man's got to stop him in the next issue. But this is, I wanted to point this out. This is really cool. This is one of those times that Morrison's playing around with story and breaking. You may have heard the expression "breaking the fourth wall" in theater and television. Where you don't break that fourth wall. You don't acknowledge the existence of the audience. But here Morrison does. And then so here's this. Psycho Pirate has all these characters that he has conjured or is allowed to come into existence in some way, and they're all gathered here. And he keeps talking. There's one panel here at the bottom, and so he's like, there, you see them leering down, referring to us, enjoying our pain. This cage we're in. They keep us here and make us turn tricks for their cheap amusement. Have you seen it before? Look. And then you get this nice, where Ultraman he sees a wall and he's pushing on it, and he breaks through the panel. I love this stuff. This was such a cool comic. Yeah, just great stuff. Makes me want to go back and read that whole run again. So that was Animal Man 23. Finally, Legion 90, number 15. This was by Alan Grant, Barry Kitson, co-plotting, and Barry Kitson doing pencils with Mark McKenna doing inks. I really enjoyed this Legion run, especially with Barry Kitson doing the art. Let's see. This is when Garen Beck, right? Is that right? Yeah. Garen. Oh, it says on the cover, Garen Beck, right? The Emerald Eye from the Legion of Superheroes, I guess the 20th century version of the Emerald Eye, bonds with Garen, and he kind of gets drunk with power, and so they have to deal with that. I just flipping through this it reminded me how good this was, and I really liked Docs, and what was Stealth is in here, and you have the ancestor of Shadowlass in here, and also an ancestor of Block from the Legion of Superheroes. I just love this. Oh, and then there is Phase, who was a Phantom Girl who disappeared in the Legion of Superheroes comic, which was a nice tie-in to that. But mostly it was just that Garen, it's a comedy of sorts. Garen doing his best to be an ass, more than usual, actually, as I recall correctly. But there you go. That's it. That's all the comics I want to talk about. The final thing I want to mention, as I was preparing this and looking at the comics, I noticed that the majority of these, all except two, right? One, two, yeah, all except two of those, they started in 1989. So everything but New Titans and Daredevil, of course, started in 19. I thought that was just a really interesting coincidence. The comics that I was reading, March 1990, when I was 21, and it was a very good year. Came out in 1989, so that was interesting. Oh no, there were three. Sorry, Animal Man came out in 88, as well as New Titans. So can't read my own handwriting. There you go. That's it. I thought that was just an interesting thing to take a look at. Comics when I was 21, March 1990. What were you reading back then? Were you reading comics back then? Love to hear what you have to say about that. All right, that's it. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.